Hey, everybody. It is Tuesday night, so it is Broadcast Team Alpha. I'm so excited for our guest tonight. You know, we have so many incredible guests that come on with just so much information about expanded consciousness and expanding the light and stepping into the electronic present. I mean, just so much. And our guest Nadi, who Augie's going to tell you about, we're just going to take thought, a little bit further, even further tonight. So we're so excited. I just want to thank you, as always, for being here. And for all of you who have heard this before, go ahead and tune me out. But for you people who are new, please like and subscribe to our YouTube station. This way, you won't ever miss when we have a pop-up show or when we have other shows. We co-create with the Conscious Awakening Network, and we've got all kinds of new things coming and expanding. So if you want to know what's happening, I just invite you to do that. Augie, please tell us about Nadi.
Oh, yes. This is going to be fun. We have Nadi Hana with us. She's a first-timer to Broadcast Team Alpha because I just discovered her. She must be one of the best secrets out there. And for those of you that like to surf the internet while you're listening to the show, I'm going to give you her web address here so you can do that. And it is galacticrosegeometry.com. galacticrosegeometry.com. And sometime later, when you are on that website, you gotta go in under blogs and read the first blog that comes up, because I did. And I know you are going to want to read that thing because it'll speak right at you with all the things that you need to hear. So that's my commercial right off the front. Anyway, Nadi I'm going to say a few things about her because for the few of you out there that doesn't know her, Nadi is an inspiring instructor, a presenter, an energy healer, and an artist. Her spiritual practices are dedicated to the expansion of our multidimensional consciousness. As a student of mainstream and esoteric knowledge for 25 years plus, she has cultivated a spectrum of skills and abilities to support our individual and collective awakening. She's giving classes, individual lessons and sessions, and doing lectures and interviews and being a guest on shows like this one, and are totally committed to the evolutionary process of humanity by helping us to access our full potential and multidimensional being within us. And every one of us have one or two, because we are multidimensional, and that means more than one. So I don't want to spend all that much time. I want to hear from what Nadi has to say, and we're not that demanding. We just want to know a few things about crop circles, because you just came back from England, where you were observing crop circles and studying them and learning and talking to people about it. And there's a lot of things that stays in England and don't get communicated everywhere. So we just want to know a few details, minor ones, like who's doing it, why are they doing it, and what does it mean?
Right, the basics, right?
Welcome, Nadi. Welcome.
Nothing serious.
Yeah. It's all such a rabbit hole. I mean, once you start to pull at a thread of, what's happening in the fields of England, or so many things, so many areas of inquiry into our consciousness and our multidimensional nature, it's just never-ending fascination. So I'm excited to talk about everything. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's so exciting to have you here. So, Nadi, I love to just ask a personal question for everybody to get to know you. Me too, to get to know you too. how did this begin for you? So many people who, like yourself, I mean, not that there's anybody like you, just similar pathways, oftentimes it kind of showed up in the early life in unusual ways. Did you see that early in your childhood, or how did this path rise up for you?
No, I was as regular as rain until, well, let me qualify that. I felt very, mainstream, living kind of a regular life until I was about 25. Somewhere in there, I had some sort of spiritual awakening, and I started on my path of inner work. And I started working with a meditation teacher, and, dove all the way in, went to live in an ashram, and I had like a daily practice.
Wow.
Very profound part of my life. I did a lot of healing work, and I spent a whole kind of like a lifetime earlier, about a dozen years ago. I was living in a world of meditation, inner work. I was a psychotherapist on an inpatient psychiatric unit at a very different level. Yeah, it was, it was intense, and it was wonderful. It was a really great training, for being able to hold a wide spectrum of experiences,
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's a big wow. Sometimes it doesn't quite register that I did that, but I look back on that time, and I did not have the spiritual lens that I do have now. And so I knew that I was in sacred space with people in a transition, whether they wanted to die or had just tried or were in what, Western medical medicine would call medical medicine, what the Western model would call a psychotic episode, I'm so on the other side of the spectrum now where, that's some kind of shamanic awakening or an ability to navigate other worlds that our mainstream world simply doesn't know how to understand. And so we diagnose and medicate. And I never want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Psychiatry and mental health does really serve a purpose. It does help, but it's too broad a net. And so it was limited for me. And I wanted to move towards more holistic practices, more like towards integration and, where I wanted to be in life. And so I left that part of my life. I left that decade and kind of made a leap of faith. I didn't know where or what, I just knew different. And very shortly thereafter, I discovered unified physics and sacred geometry. And I was kind of flailing about, but also anchoring myself in the geometry. And, it gives this beautiful structure for holding anything, right? It's a finite structure that can contain the infinite. And so it held me through my process. And I just drew a lot. And I drew so much that I ended up having an art show and sort of turning into an artist, from mental health to artist. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just following a path of alignment, and the geometry helped me feel aligned, because it's this perfectly proportioned harmonic. And so I was just in training my system into wellness, and then able to hear my guidance more and more. And then I had art installments, and then people saw the geometry, and then I needed to talk about it, and everybody wanted to learn about it. So I started teaching, and I started teaching how to draw it in colleges and lots of different classes. And this is an example of my art behind me. It really took me quite a while to grow into, and to expand into everything that, that I had to offer. And then the sacred geometry led me to crop circles, because the fundamental patterns of crop circles, the genuine crop circles, are based in geometry. And then studying about crop circles led me to learn about advanced civilizations and circle makers. And then that led me to connecting with my off-planet self, my, multidimensional simultaneous selves, and learning about the hybridization program and my participation with it. I mean, it really just, I went full on into my expansion after leaping from a regular world. But the answer is I lived a pretty regular, understandable life. I took a leap of faith, and now I live a fairly fantastic, an extraordinary life. And I'm really grateful to.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so amazing. And just a really quick side path, just for a nanosecond. When I was a nurse in mainstream medicine, there was not one psychotic patient who came in and put in the room with no windows that I had a conversation with, that I listened to, that didn't contain shreds of the mystical. They all did, if you really, really listened.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to terms with the part of me that couldn't hear that. I know that I was of service in the time, but it's so, it feels really important to be reframing and relanguaging so much of what we have called psychotic or crazy or, marginalized. Yeah, that's a big passion.
Yes. So there are so many layers, I imagine. I know so little about sacred geometry, except what appeals to me, on an energetic level and on a soul level. How does that really work? I mean, what is it? The vibration? Is it the frequency? Is it the harmonics of the geometry? What is it that gives us that feeling that makes us go, oh, I want to know more about this, or gives us a shift even in our energy?
Yeah, all of it. Vibration, frequency, you got it. Yeah. I think I can sum it up. The most common question is, well, what makes it sacred? Like, sacred geometry, they have burdens, we've got programs with those words, but I really like to invite, if we can, transcending our programs, and looking at, I would say, the universality, right? Like the beyond program aspect of geometry, right? Age and I were talking about math and the universal language of math and before the show. And the geometry can help us get past the illusion of separation. And that's part of what makes it sacred in my definition, is that everything has a geometric structure. And when you start to move with that lens, it breaks down the divisive programs that we've been given. And so
I like that.
The geometry, right? There's that sacredness in sort of a unity consciousness piece. But then also we are fundamentally geometric in structure, right? Our DNA is organized in the phi ratio. Our basic cellular structure mirrors the seed of life in its bifurcation process. So as we are working with the geometry, as we're looking at it or getting tattoos on our body or drawing it, it's because of the resonance, right? And it's that in training into symmetry and harmony that, you're onto it. Vibration, frequency.
So amazing.
It seems to me like sacred geometry, at least I have seen scientists even talk about it, it is embedded in absolutely everything. It's in nature. It is in things that we create that works. It is in us. It is everywhere. And sacred geometry can be reduced into numbers and, ones and zeros, if you like, computer code and genetics. And it is everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's part of the sacred piece. If it's everywhere, then that brings everything together, So we, as the sacred, I think when you tap into that harmony, right, that's perfect alignment. The geometries are so beautifully proportioned, and they elicit a sense of balance, right? They elicit that resonance where we see art or architecture, or we hear music that incorporates the ratios, the phi ratios, this infinite fractalizing sacred geometry. Like, we know it because we are it. We're drawn to it because it's our essence. And so it's this unifying principle. And it's guided me, it has brought me into alignment, and I've been more able to hear, my guidance. It's heightened my sensory ability. It's brought more of my capacities online. And that's what I am here to share, and beat the drum of our, multidimensional nature, because there's many roads to multidimensionality, and sacred geometry is one of them. It can help us remember.
How could a beginner utilize sacred geometry to begin to tap into, explore their multidimensional aspects? Is there, art? Would art follow that, or?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what I do at my most fundamental offering, is teaching people how to draw sacred geometry. It is so user friendly. I have had 100% success after doing it for 12 years with people, kids, octogenarians, anywhere in the spectrum. It's very accessible. And as you draw it, it's so fun. We've got these 2D shapes, but we're entraining our systems with harmony. Literally, we are aligning the hemispheres of our brain, right? You can create an altered state of consciousness by drawing the geometries, and it begins to reflect, reflects our imbalances, it reflects our perfections, and using it as a tool for expansion is really, really powerful. And I teach, 2-month, 3-month courses. And the evolutionary process through those weeks about self-reflection and expansion is profound, because we're drawing 2D. So we've got this terrible statistic, right? Where 10% of our waking reality is governed by our conscious mind. 90% is governed by our unconscious, subconscious programming, right? So the geometry speaks to the 90%. It speaks to the archetype and the mathematics of our subconscious mind. So you think you're drawing a star tetrahedron, right? 2 tetrahedrons, your Merkaba, the flower of life. You think you're drawing these really great 2D shapes. Meanwhile, your subconscious is just getting so excited because you're turning on the other sensory abilities. You're turning on more of you. You are reclaiming, you are empowering. You're beginning to turn on that awareness of unity consciousness. And it's really empowering and it's really exciting. And it's bringing more of us online.
So great. And they can't put it, they can't put it in a pill.
No.
They can't sell it that way. Yay. That's
right.
I'm sorry, Augie, please go ahead.
I was just saying, God must be a mathematician.
Or an artist. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Math always used to freak me out. Very intimidating, and I've come to love it. Very, very basic math, but you don't have to have any math in sacred geometry. I've been on the metaphysical end of the spectrum since the beginning, but because it has everything, then, cosmology, physics, art, music, everything, if you, I will remain calm, but everything can come back to the geometry. It's just that fundamental,
Oh, can you just, this is a selfish question, but I'm sure everybody will benefit from it. How does one of your 3-month classes go? How does that work? That's so intriguing.
Yeah. It's I feel so honored because I've over the decade, the classes have just become more and more evolved and fascinating, and the most amazing people are drawn to sacred geometry, right? I don't want that to sound biased, but it's so cool. And I've only learned in the last couple of years that I really do it just to meet my people, the most awesome people. They know something's going on, right? And so this evolutionary process of 3 months, people come in and they kind of sometimes they're like, yeah, I know about sacred geometry. I want to be able to draw it. sometimes they come in and like, I have no idea why I'm here. I just know I need to be here. I had one woman who had just, she had just had a traumatic brain injury. And she was like, someone told me I could reprogram my neural pathways with sacred geometry. I mean, it's incredible to see what people go through in terms of transformation. And so what's fun for me is, at this point, I have 18 years as a group facilitator, 18 years of experience, right? It's one of my passions because when we come together, we just validate each other so much. And especially, some of us like fringy, more extraordinary folks that are moving with the advanced civilizations and the motherships and, come together, find our common ground and just remember how really remarkable we are. And so sacred geometry is usually attracting the extraordinary folks who know there's way more going on than what we're being told. And, so it's group connection. It's learning from each other. It's learning to draw. We start with the seed of life. We move into 12-fold geometries and Metatron's cube and the flower of life. And then we keep going into like the tesseract, right? This is a hypercube, which is a fourth dimensional shape. Doesn't even exist in our dimension. So we're going to draw something that doesn't really exist. And then we've got to start to contemplate other dimensional realities. So it was really expansive. And then we start drawing like the 64 star tetrahedron, which is the fundamental lattice of, the universe, right? And the expansion that happens, like the conceptual shift, personally, existentially, it's so beautiful to be a part of all of us seeing new potentials in ourselves and in our world. It's everything. I never get tired of it.
Wow. Yeah.
It's everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How can we actually put sacred geometry to work for us? I know I've heard people saying that you could take one pattern and you sit there and stare at it. And somehow the pattern goes into the brain and then from there into the mind, and it changes your ability to connect to the universal mind. And you can actually put this to work for you.
Yeah.
Can you say something like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing is meditation is so powerful and it takes so much discipline and practice. And, so often we hear, I tried, I sat down, my mind just won't stop. And it's not, sometimes it's a formidable task to try and sit and work with the meditation and, it expands and grow by staring at something, and it's doable. It's very doable. And what's super cool is that anywhere you are on the spectrum of your spiritual work, the geometry will match you and it will take you to the next level, right? So you can start at a beginner level. And what I like to invite is the drawing of it, right? You do not have to be an artist. It's simply, it's learning how to use a compass and then making circles, right? And, in my classes, we really go step by step and it's gentle, right? It's a very supportive process. So Augie, what I'm getting to is meditation and just sitting can be daunting, but putting a compass on a piece of paper and drawing circles and making sacred geometry simultaneously engages the left brain. And the left brain's like, oh yes, I know what to do here. And it liberates the right brain to be more receptive and have that sort of experience we're looking for in meditation of, connecting sort of like divine guidance and wisdom and being able to activate, the geometry incorporates both the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. It incorporates the divine feminine, the divine masculine, the circular structures, the linear lines, it brings everything together. So drawing it, Augie, I would say that that's really a place to start. That's my passion because it engages you in a meditative process, but it just seems like you're drawing, but really you're bringing yourself into a symmetry and harmony. by the shapes, the nature of the shapes.
I think it was Melchizedek that said in one of his videos that these patterns, you can sit and look at them and they will work for you. You don't have to understand what it is. You don't have to understand how it works, but your mind, your superconscious mind understands how to work with it. So it works for you anyway.
Yeah.
Do you agree to that?
Yeah, it's magic. I mean, this is mystery school stuff, right? This is subversively enlightening information that's been, kept from us. But the geometry really holds the secrets of the universe. I think it holds the secrets to our liberation, and not everybody is in support of that. So, but here we go. No stopping us now.
Can we connect sacred geometry to crop circles somehow? I want to hear about crop circles.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where to start? How would you like to do that, Augie? Would you? I could go so many different ways. I'm like in the world of crop circles. Just having been in England for 2 weeks, I wouldn't even know where to start with that question. Yeah,
crop circles has been around a long time, and especially in the last few decades, maybe more so. And it's a global phenomena. There is actually, I read Norwegian newspapers because I'm from there. I see they even had them there.
Mm-hmm. Not that's
the big, elaborate ones, but smaller ones. But they're definite crop circles, and there are things from South America and here in America that it's been. So what do you think about all this? I want to just let your brain just unload on us.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, I could go anywhere, but going there, being in England, I got to go to the crop circle exhibition in the museum. It's like local. It's where all of the crappies are. Everybody comes every year. They descend on Wiltshire County. And I got to talk to people who have been doing it for decades. And I got to learn so much that actually left me more in the mystery of, who and what and why. And so I didn't go and get any definitive answers, but a couple of things I found, like I got some books that are out of print and you can't find them anywhere else. And they're, some really fun things. So going back to the geometry the question. So, this is one of my favorites, right? This was we call this the Julia set. It's really well known. So I know some people will be really familiar with it, but this is a picture. It was made 1996 and it was made in broad daylight in about 20 minutes. And it had over 15,000 witnesses. And this whole, in 1996, they were really catching on to the phenomenon. And this whole highway became a parking lot. And people watched this formation be made. And this is the phi spiral, right? We're talking geometry. This is the structure of our DNA. This is this infinite spiraling shape that, is fascinating if you start to contemplate infinity. That's been my passion. So showed up right across from Stonehenge, really attention getting. And then, things like Patricia Corey went and sat in the center circle, right, and started channeling the Syrians. She wrote a couple of series of books called the Syrian Revelations, and downloaded all sorts of information. So that's like one of thousands of examples of how geometry is woven into the formations. I think it's also really fun, the core question of who makes them, right? And the genuine crop circles, the man-made ones, the government-made ones. Usually the perfection of the geometry is a way to tell a man-made versus a genuine crop circle made by advanced civilizations and whatnot. Boy, all my beliefs are just going to be coming out. But that's a great place to start in terms of like the phi ratio. But there have been beautiful, I'm just looking through my little book here to see if there's been so many beautiful formations over the years that have.
Show us some
I don't
of
want to
them.
get caught up in the book. It's hard to know where to start. So what else did that inspire? Where do we go now?
Yeah, show us some of the more elaborate ones also, because this is something that I think it was a few years back. There was two guys that came forward. The name were Doug and Dave, and they said, "Yeah, we're the ones doing it. You know, we have a board that we carry around, and they got a rope to it, and to get it symmetrical and stuff." And yeah, the media, they caught on to those guys, and they tried to buffalo everybody, but of course that didn't work. But show us some of the really elaborate ones, because there is no chance whatsoever that a human like me could be able to create something like that.
Yeah. Well, Doug and Dave, right? I think that when we talk about Doug and Dave, and when we think about what I call the disinformation campaign, right? The effort to discredit and debunk this phenomenon, the effort has been so sincere and successful because there is something to be covered up, right? These are, my experience, my knowing is that these are encoded messages from advanced civilizations that are here to help us. There have been thousands of them over decades. And certainly what's wonderful about them is that because there is not really definitive information about who makes them, you can believe whatever you want to believe. You can believe they're man-made. You can believe they're advanced civilizations. There's tons of evidence for both. All of them are true, right? So it's really about deciding, and it's about consciousness. I study them because I believe that they're tools for activation. I believe that they are encoded with glyphs and blueprints and codes that can activate our DNA, right? I'm all in. That's where I sit with them. And usually have a PowerPoint, right? This is what I do with my calls and classes on crop circles, but this is a book. They're so fun. So many of them. I only have a book of like the basics, but you can't possibly imagine how complex and amazing they are. I'm just, flipping through here. But they've been happening for decades, All right, I'll show you the one that really kicks it for me. Usually when I'm talking to people about the, who makes them, there's a couple of phenomenon that really get your wheels turning about who might be involved. And one of the things, it's called a ghost formation, right? So this is a formation. Typically, we call it the owl, right? Because it looks like an owl when you look at it from a little human mind. So this one was from 2009. So this was made in the fields. I actually went into this field when I was there. And then the image remained when it was harvested, right? So there's a little bit of curiosity that it was, it didn't disappear with the field. And then a snow dusting revealed it that winter, right? The pattern stayed there. But then typically with a ghost formation, the pattern will grow back with the next year's field, right? So this is springtime season in canola rapeseed oil fields. And, they've researched them for decades. They've tried to come up with some lovely empirical data for us to study and legitimize the phenomenon. And the ghost formations where like the crystalline structure of the soil has been altered to recreate the patterns. It's just endlessly fascinating stuff. And, all of the really famous ones where, this is 409 circles, right? This was made in a driving rain in a summer storm. It was 4 hours of dark sky in the England solstice, and it was made on a hilltop plateau, and each circle rotates counterclockwise. The lay of the crop rotates one direction then the other, which kind of creates this like cog in a wheel effect. And we see it 2D, but Foster Gamble in his movie Thrive back in 2010, he made this wonderful animation of it being 3D, right? So we see these little 2D versions of what are, really amazing 3D and multi-D shapes, right?
Oof.
Tell me how deep you want to go. I can talk forever.
Yeah. And another thing too about these circles is that it cannot be done by people, even if they had the sophistication to do it, because when people do it, they break the plant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the real crop circles, the plants are bent like they were microwaved or something, so they became soft when they laid down.
Yeah.
And the people over in England, I guess, understand that a lot better than what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's different when you've been in them, which is part of why I went over to be in them, and the genuine crop circles, exactly, Aga, you have it. It's, there's a technology that heats up the plants, becomes, the plant becomes more malleable, but it keeps the plant alive in the field, right? Whereas man-made ones, they crumple and they break the stalks and the fields die. And, just all sorts of studies of, the germination rate of the seeds in the crops and the propagation, and the increased nutritional density. It's just lots of fascinating information. And, it's really legit. There are man-made ones. The government is involved. It is a fascinating study. And my trip kind of brought up more questions than answers. And I'm really glad I went. But there's definitely, the whole spectrum of formations that have been witnessed to appear within 10, 20 minutes or sooner. And then there's like an electrostatic charge left in the field, or, we've begun to measure sonic frequencies that remain in the field after they're made, that create like a theta wave that then we have an altered state of consciousness in them, and, all sorts of contact experiences, or spontaneous healings or remissions, or astral travel. These are the experiences that are non-local, advanced technology that I think are here to help us, activate.
Really so Nadi,
yeah.
Can you hear me? I'm so sorry. I'm on a phone, guys. So sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now we can.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, Nadi, I am so curious about your personal experience with the crop circles and or sacred geometry regarding your activation and meeting your galactic family or contact or understanding that, or any version of that.
Yeah, all of it. So I took that leap of faith 12 years ago. And one of the first things I came across, I was living back east. I'm from the Northwest. I was living back east. I came back to the West Coast and I discovered the festival culture, right? Conscious music festivals. And I went to one, and there was a crop circle booth, right? He was selling like pendants like this with crop circles that had been made. And I could not leave the booth. I was there for like the whole festival. And the guy was like, "This is really strange. I swear I don't do this, but do you want to come with me and sell these? Like, do you want to join the vending crop circles crew?" And I did. And I went around and sold them for a little while, not a long time, like just a couple of weeks. Beyond that, I just wanted to be around them. I had no idea what was happening. It was compulsory. I was like, it was an activation. And then I went about my way and promptly forgot about that for 7 years, until I saw one. And like the switch was just flipped. And it was like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He's just completely obsessed with, Devil's Tower, because he knows that that's where the contact will be, but he doesn't know. And it was the same for me. I was drawing them. I was around them all the time. I was learning about them. I started holding classes and calls on them. And it was the same as the geometry. My system was getting turned on, and I started attracting, learning about light language and experiencing light language and communicating with whales and dolphins and opening up my other sensory abilities, beyond the 3D, and then learning that those are multisensory, that we are multidimensional. There are, I began having relationships on interdimensional levels and going to visit aspects of myself in other star systems that are of planetary service there as well, learning that I'm one aspect of an oversoul, that is responding to the call of Earth and the part of the transition team in our ascension process, and that I'm doing that in a lot of different places. So I had no idea, I had this crop circle activation, then I got fully immersed in them and just obsessed. And it came in waves. Like I would get super obsessed and surround myself with them, making montages and watching them and just having an amazing synchronicities. And then it would, go quiet for a little while and I would just be integrating. But watching the evolution as related to the circles and my connection to them was awesome.
Wow.
Sometimes I just listen to myself.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that answers the question. Does that give you an idea of the trajectory?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any personal connection to galactics or your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what makes sense to me. Like to look at this planet and humanity and this dimension through the lens of understanding our relationship to a galactic community, to our star friends and neighbors, Arcturians, Pleiadians, Andromedans, Orions, Sirians, all of the friends that we know about, and then many, many more, cetaceans, our whales and dolphin family. Like this place makes no sense to me without the lens of extraterrestrial. And I don't even use that word, advanced civilization. Without understanding that influence, both benevolently and nefariously, none of this makes sense at all to me. So my connection, making the connections with my off-planet entourage, support team has made things okay. Star kids, those of us who are tapped in, it's really weird to be here sometimes. And so knowing that off-planet reality has been comforting and inspiring and, dare I say, keeps me going sometimes.
I definitely feel that. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Anything about your connection with your star family that you would like to share, or should we go on to something else?
Oh, gosh, I love that. Yeah, I can tie it to the crop circles, because I went wanting evidence, right? We all want evidence. We all want proof. We love proof. Didn't get it. I didn't get it. What I got was an invitation to go more deeply into my existential conviction about the presence of advanced civilizations, right? Because this is just one tool, right? This is like a fingerprint that they're leaving for us. It's a clue. And so, I've had a lot of experiences that are just not like, there's no way to explain them as like, oh, this is a man-made phenomena. I've had non-local activations simply by looking at them, meaning spontaneous tears and a feeling of homecoming and a resonance that is so deep that I have a knowing of my galactic origins. I have a knowing of these formations as communications from those civilizations. And that knowing is what creates a new civilization. That intuitive knowing, that dimensional knowing is what we are developing to expand into the nonlinear, into the heart-centered consciousness and connectivity. And so all of the different tools that are strengthening our knowing, strengthening our higher consciousness, that's where we're going, is moving towards that, right? And so I went wanting confirmation, external confirmation, and I had to just go more deeply into the internal knowing. And okay, cosmic giggle, but that's what happens. Is I'm actually more sure about these supernatural and phenomenal benevolence aspects of the formation. This is the one I got to sit in. This one was made was made the day I arrived, and I got to sit in it the day after. And it was tremendous. It's ninefold geometry, so you've got 3 rings of 9, and 9 always reduces to 9. And if you look at the mysteries of 3, 6, and 9, just like Tesla encouraged us to do, you really can find a lot of keys to understanding the universe.
I'm wondering also, is there any consensus of the local people over there to the effect of how are these created, or who is it? Is it extraterrestrial, or is it secret space program and dark science on Earth that is creating these? What do they think over there, local people?
Yeah, all of it. They think all of that, right? There's truth to a good solid psyop, right? A nice psychological operative and the government involvement. There's truth to man-made ones, people who just want to participate in the hoaxing phenomenon. And there's truth to the genuine advanced technologies that are involved in creating the formations, right? So it's all of it. It's fascinating. And over there, the locals, it's a whole range. You know, you have a bunch of people that have been there for decades, a bunch of people that come from around the world during the season to be with the crop circles. And there's the whole, you know, farmers versus croppies. And, you know, we could speculate that even humans that create them in the fields have larger soul contracts to participate in making formations that, you know, activate our consciousness. Like, we're looking at it from afar. We don't know man-made, genuine-made, unless we use our intuition to feel into it. And one woman that I really resonate with how she interprets those circles, her name is Judith Moore, and she wrote a book with Barbara Lamb, one of my most favorite people. And Judith channels an entity called Leolin, who is a keeper of the records of Ra, right? Big time information source. And she's a channel. You know, we always have to take that with a grain of salt, human consciousness involved. But she, Agi, exactly, you know, the planetary consciousness is involved, the actual plants, the consciousness of the plants, you know, the collective consciousness. She has received information that all of this is involved in making the formation, right? That it is the collective of humanity that is calling for this information, that it is benevolent civilizations here to help us. And that because it's a higher technology, when they are made with any kind of nefarious intent, when that is encoded somehow, that there are, you know, there is the ability to change and manipulate that energetic into one that is positive, right? So it's the whole spectrum. People have uncomfortable negative experiences in them. People have life-changing, you know, activations. And this is why it caused me existential abyss, right? It just threw me back into the, like, oh my God, what is going on? And you can answer in any which way that's right for you, and it's going to be true. So you got to decide. You will find evidence for anything, right? And that's like life, right? It's like, choose your beliefs, right? And my belief is that this is evidence of benevolent civilizations here to help us. I've had that physical, non-physical, non-linear experience of transformation myself, and I can really get how people would want to dismiss things like that by being man-made.
Mm-hmm. How do you think they can help? How do you think?
What's that? Can you say it again? Broke up. Can't quite make it out. Do you want to put it in the chat? Oh, if you're on a phone, you might not be able to chat. But we can't quite get your question at the moment. How's it sounding, Agi? Is it all like, how does it strike you personally? Like, what do you believe? What do you think about them?
I think Nori's breaking up a little bit, but I have one more thing that I wanted to mention to you, and I'm sure you know about it. I think it was a couple of 3 years ago. I saw there was somebody that was sitting up on a hill, kind of watching a field, expecting maybe to see something.
Yeah.
And then they saw these two lights that came around, and they were circling around. And when they had completed a circle, you could see the crop circle, the grass just laid down underneath in the pattern that was designed. Did you see that little? It was about a 3-minute video, I think.
Yeah, that's a well-known video where the formation just manifests. I mean, there's a lot of people that have, you could imagine everybody wants to see them being made. They sit up on Silbury Hill and everybody has night watches and they take 360-degree perspective and they take shifts and they stay up all night and still formations happen and nobody saw it. And then some people have seen it and lots of people see balls of light and there's sounds that are made. I mean, there are so many eyewitnesses to really paranormal phenomenon. That can also be government involvement. I mean, it's a really non-definitive situation here. So yeah, there's evidence.
For that video, I'm giving it a 95% chance. That is of an extraterrestrial origin.
Awesome. Yeah, it's out there. It's true.
I think so.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yay. Okay. So, Nadi, back to the advanced civilizations, you said that you believe that they're here to help us. How can they help us? Through our individual consciousness, through our collective consciousness, or a way that I haven't even thought about? What do you think?
Yeah, all of the above, right? Individual consciousness, collective consciousness. I think individual, I believe that crop circles are one avenue, sacred geometry is one avenue, meditation, light language, arts. I mean, all of the pathways to enlightenment, so to speak, all of the ways that we are calling for to access the more of us that we are. Hang on, my language is going a little wonky there. There are so many different paths to God, right? And so in terms of benevolent civilizations, they are one, they're one pathway. And I really believe that they have the ability to expose us to a more unity consciousness experience, right? Where we can understand the interconnectivity of everything. And if you really get that at a cellular level, you're going to live differently. You're going to understand how much waste you produce. You're going to understand the programs of division that are illusions. You're going to understand how important it is to really love deeply and extend kindness to each other. And that level of advanced perspective of understanding love, how important love is everything. And so I believe that of the higher consciousness beings, that is the message that permeates individual contact, collective contact. I think transformation will be through our increased connectivity to loving each other, loving the planet. So that's kind of my answer, even though I don't really know if that was an answer.
I love that answer. I love that answer. And for people who are new to this, people who are raising their eyebrow now going, what is all this? An entry level step that we can all make, whether we're new or we're not new to this, is to really step into love. That really is where everything begins and expands from. And even if we don't know what all this is, it's so big to try and wrap our brains around tonight. And the trick is to not use your brain, right? But to begin to wade into, the frequency of love on every level, right? I mean, even just in our everyday conversations, that's going to lead us to another path that's going to rise up to meet us, and then another one, and then other things become expansive and unfold.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way.
Yeah. So beautiful.
And I think a big part of it is, I used to love Abraham. I mean, I still do, but I used to I was in a full immersion mode with Abraham Hicks. And they have a practice, they say go general, right? Like we can't flip into love right away when we're steeped in the fear programming of mainstream media, the ripples of fear permeate everything. And so, simply trying to mitigate the fear at first, I think is the good first steps. We know about turning our TVs off and this whole thing. But stepping into more neutrality is a really great first step, by moving away from the fear. And then in that neutrality, we start to attract more, I want to say, high vibrational. What do I want to say? In that neutrality is the spaciousness to choose. And when we choose, we organically choose connectivity. And so just creating that spaciousness to make the choice versus being bombarded with what we should feel and believe, that's a huge step, and takes a little bit of pressure off of things. And then that choice point is so much more powerful. So anything that gives us spaciousness.
So beautifully said. So, and the fear thing is really tricky because I don't know that, but we think we know what we're afraid of, and so
you're breaking up
again. We lost you after we think we know what we're afraid of.
Yeah, we think that we know what we're afraid of, and then something really big happens in life that scares the Jesus out of you, and it takes you to a new level of understanding where we still have work to do. Do you have anything that you could share for people who are just beginning to understand that they do have fears and they're wading into, releasing their fears? I'm sure your art, would be a beautiful medication, if you will, for them. But yeah, what do you think?
Well, what popped in, so I hope I heard the question in terms of, I just want to make sure I got the question right. What's a first step that people can take when they're making transitions? Did I get that right?
That would be perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had a thought and then I was like, oh, I don't know if that's useful. So I would say the first thought is the one that I swear is my mantra, and it'll sound so silly, but part of creating space in our psyche is removing or taking a step back from critical voices, right? We are so hard on ourselves. We are mean. We are meaner to ourselves than we would ever be to anybody else. And it's a program that keeps us down. And one of the things, literally, I walk around telling myself what a good job I'm doing. It sounds so silly. But the thing is no matter what you're doing, you showed up. And you can start with that. You're on this planet, and it takes so much every day to be here. And so by saying you're doing a good job to yourself a lot, it honors how much it takes to be here. There is so much that's taken for granted. We live with so much stress and pain. And so just showing up is such a victory. I could look at anybody and find the places where they're doing a good job. And I look for the places where I'm doing a good job in my life because it pivots me into more lightness. It pivots me into appreciation. Then I can find some gratitude. And gratitude is really the game changer. It's to be able to find what's here and working for us. There you go. I got myself to our answer. Gratitude is the key. If you can find the smallest thing, that's the one. Yeah, that's the game changer, gratitude. And we're doing a really good job.
Thank you. That's so beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
see we're getting down towards the end of the show here, but let people know how they can get a hold of you, because you do more than talk about drop circles. You're a yoga instructor, a meditation teacher, you do Reiki healing, and you teach us, so you do light language.
Mhm.
And let them know how they can find you and maybe have a discussion with you and get in touch.
We'd love to have a discussion about all of those things. Yeah. So you can fill out the contact form at my website, and that's, as you said in the beginning, it's Galactic Rose Geometry. And I also have a bunch of videos up on my YouTube channel, which is also, I think, Galactic Rose. And then one of the things that's just always available is I have an 8-module course. That's that course that we were talking about before, all of the different steps of learning. You can find that at Star Family Wisdom, and that is Jenna Layden's platform. It's a wonderful website, all sorts of support for experiencers that are coming into understanding their contact experiences. So Star Family Wisdom has my online sacred geometry drawing class. I give you the information about what you're learning and drawing, and then I also give you instruction on how to do it. We do it together, and then there's PDFs and steps and all of that fun stuff. And then, presentations locally. I do energy work locally. We do light language out on the rocks in Sedona. I feel really blessed to be able to be here and participate in, activation circles and ceremonies. And yeah, let's talk, let's get together. I am here of service. I am here to support. And I'm going to be able to tell you where you're doing a good job.
Nadi, my life has been made better just by having this conversation with you tonight. Thank you so much for sharing, your light and your wisdom and all that you've shared with us. It's so grateful. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel super uplifted too. I really appreciate that's all. It's just about talking about these good things together, right? So what you all are doing on the platform and bringing everyone to, uplift each other. I'm so honored to be a part of what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and for the listeners out there, go to her website, galacticrosegeometry.com, and like I did, read that blog. I
don't even remember, Augie. I don't even remember what's in the blog.
I think it dates back over a year or something, but it was so good. And I have a favorite question that I would love to ask you.
Oh boy.
Very personal one. And that is, if you could talk to the whole world and the world is listening, what would you tell them?
Well, the whole world, that's a vast expanse of potential, isn't it? I would say my motto is, you're not crazy, you're extraordinary. Right? Now, there's one caveat. If you are a crazy driver, you're not an extraordinary driver. There's a few places where it doesn't exchange equally. But those of us who have been told that we're crazy or have internalized that message and believe that we're crazy, maybe you're extraordinary. Maybe, just maybe, and you haven't been told that. So that's the one thing I like to say to people is, maybe you're not crazy, maybe you're actually extraordinary.
Yep. I am sure there's a lot of people sitting in asylums that has been talking about stuff like I've been talking about, and that's why they ended up there.
Yeah, painful aspect of this dimension for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being with us. This was lovely. Wonderful.
Thank you, Augie. Thank you both so much. And everyone listening, it's really so fun to talk about these things. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'd love to have you back on sometime and have another discussion. There's so much more to talk about.
Always. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.